weekly podcast hosted by Dr. Spike Cook,
sharing stories, ideas, and information about the Millville Public School District in southern New Jersey.
For more information or to connect with us, follow the hashtag MPSWC and like Millville Public Schools on Facebook.
And when I grow up.
Hosted by myself, Spike Cook. Our guest this week is Dr. Dave Gentile, the Superintendent of the Millville Public Schools. Dr. Gentile, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So we are here at your home school when you were here in elementary school, Bacon School, recording on an awesome day in September.
Yep, sitting in the principal's office, which I never had to do when I was a student.
That's good.
Maybe once.
Who was the principal here when you were here?
Mr. Simpkins. Roger Simpkins was our principal. He was a great guy, very fair, so Mr. Simpkins.
Awesome. I've heard stories. He used to go out play kickball with you guys, and then of course you had the floor hockey program here, yeah. So a lot of great memories.
Great memories, and every time I come into this building, I get just a great feeling, and still reminds me of when I went to school here. Enough of the traditions being held on to, but also a lot of the new things that you're doing here with your staff and students is really, it's exciting, contagious. It's great stuff.
Thank you. So for everybody out there, if you could just kind of introduce yourself, if they don't know, too much about, your education career, just to get a chance to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit, how you got into education and your story.
Okay. My name's Dave Gentile, and I'm going to have my 40th birthday coming up in November, so really excited about that. I grew up in this town. I grew up in Millville. I lived right down the street from Bacon School on 10th and Main. Had a great time as a Millville student here. I got to experience Bacon School, Holly Heights Memorial, and the senior high school, and just had a great experience. Went on to Elizabethtown for a year, and then ended up finishing up at Rowan. Went to be an elementary school teacher and taught fourth grade at Holly Heights for about 4 years. Went on to teach some alternatives, 8th grade, behaviorally challenged students for a while in another district up the road in Runnymede, and got some administrative experience. I became a vice principal and then the principal of a middle school, and went on from there to be the superintendent in Mount Holly, which is a smaller district up in Burlington County, and was fortunate to interview in Millville, and I'm going into my 5th year as the superintendent of the Millville Public Schools.
That's excellent. So when you think back to your teaching days, what was the most challenging aspect to being a teacher, and then also what was the most rewarding?
Wow. Well, so I guess I'll start with what was most rewarding, and I think that goes for all educators. What's most rewarding is seeing that aha moment in students when the light clicks on, they make a connection, they're able to achieve something that they didn't necessarily think they were able to, so they push beyond their expectations and even yours. So that part's most rewarding and very exciting. I think that's the part that I hope never dies in me, is just that I love seeing kids learn. Love stopping in our classrooms throughout the district and watching teachers just, one light bulb at a time turning kids on. I think it's awesome. Most challenging part being a teacher back then and probably today is trying to meet the state's expectations and all that's being thrust upon us with state mandates. Common Core. I went to my daughter's back to school night the other night, and she's going into kindergarten, and you're hearing about Common Core, things like SGOs, and the kindergarten teacher saying we don't have as much time just to let the kids be kids and have fun anymore. So really the expectations are always being ramped up. So even back when I was teaching, it felt like we were ramping up the expectations then. I think that's just the natural cycle of things, that we always are trying to do more and do better for the kids, and I think that's challenging. when I began teaching fourth grade, it was when they had just introduced ESPA, if anybody can remember the old ESPA GEPA days. So we had, a high stakes test that we were trying to prepare for, and the challenge as a teacher is, how do I get students prepared for a test that I really don't have any idea what's going to be on it or any real input into it, while also having them love learning. And that was something that I took a lot of pride in. I was doing a lot with multiple learning styles even back then. I was a big fan of Howard Gardner and his multiple intelligences, and I believe, as I do today, that there are many ways for kids and people to demonstrate their intelligence, and we shouldn't expect everybody to be at the exact same place at the exact same time, because education isn't a linear process. It doesn't work that way. Different times you'll make connections, and each child is different. And so I think as long as we keep that in mind, it's okay to have high expectations, a common core, and even an assessment that gives us an idea of where kids are. But let's remember that just because a child isn't there at this point, that that we just throw that out and forget about them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, last week I had Henry Hartman on the podcast, of course, the supervisor for fine and performing arts, and we talked a lot about the arts and music and theater, and also how the whole child, educating the whole child, is really coming back into vogue, which is something that I'm sure you would say should have never gone out of vogue.
Yeah, I didn't know it. Yeah,
right.
It's
like that's now a thing, and it's a shame because, and I think maybe, if anything, the pendulum is swinging from the high-stakes standardized testing, that was prevalent in the 90s and the early 2000s, that now, that there are a lot of educators that are saying some things, that are, like what you're just saying, for a superintendent to say, listen, that's just one measure, for the kids, meaning the standardized test, and we need to look at multiple intelligences and different learning styles and modalities. That's really brave, because there's a lot of our predecessors weren't necessarily questioning those type of decisions made by, federal, state government, but it sounds like what you're doing is putting kids first.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to do. And I think, again, having a state assessment is great, but again, it's only in language arts, literacy, and mathematics. There is way more to the world and to people than that. And Mr. Hartman is spot on, with fine and performing arts. I just think I think at the federal, national, and state levels, there just needs to be an awareness that these test scores shouldn't be used to label, punish, or otherwise be the end all of what a school, a student, a teacher is capable of. Because it's great. We all want to have some assessment of where we are.
Sure.
If you're trying, for instance, if you're trying to a new fitness plan, you're gonna take snapshots of your overall health. You're gonna get on the scale. You might do a body fat index and body mass index to see if you're making progress. But all along that one measurement on the scale isn't the tell-all of your overall health. You need to take in a full picture. You need to have blood work done. You need to have all these things done, right? And as I get older, I realize you got to have a lot of blood work done to keep track of yourself. But anyway, I think the same is true with kids. Just because they're here on a language arts literacy end of year assessment, I think it's a failure on our part if we just cast this wide thing and say, well, that's where that student is, and that's their value as a learner. I just think there's a lot more to students, a lot more to schools, and districts, and teachers, and I don't think it's a fair judgment. And I hear this all the time, and we're making some headway, I think, with some of the state folks, trying to explain to them, don't call us a low-performing school district just because our end-of-the-year test assessments are low.
Right.
Right. Come down and take a look at how we operate our district. Take a look at how the administration and the teachers and the students are working hard. Take a look at that and look at the overall picture to make a determination of what kind of district we are. Same is true with districts that get labeled as high performing simply because their kids can show up and pass a test. I think there's some cautionary tales there.
And you talk to the teachers and the administrators quite often about using multiple measures of data, and you want to talk a little bit about the partnership that you've had with Drexel University over the last few years, working on the climate and culture, and also the response to intervention, because I think what that's done, at least for me as a principal, has given us, a really a data-based way to explain other things that are going on in our schools, such as office discipline referrals and students who are at or above national norms for just basic skills.
Right, right. So working with Dr. Connell, as you know, he's been a partner with the district for quite some time before I got here, actually, and we've just kept that partnership going. He's helped us do two things, I think, really well in the district, and one is, you mentioned, a response to intervention process. Response to intervention simply is our way of identifying early when kids aren't hitting what our expectations are. It's a way for us not only to identify them, but then to provide targeted one-to-one intervention and improvement, and see if the student can make improvements and gains. And it's a real way for us to make sure that we're not just passing kids on to our child study team for special education simply because they're behind.
Right.
And I think before we had the RTI process, and I think not only in Millville but in many districts, students are a grade level or two behind for many reasons, and they surface in a classroom, and the regular ed teacher is frustrated because they're behind. They end up getting referred for special education, and then thus a label of learning disabled. And they're not really learning disabled, they're just learning impaired, so to speak. They're just behind.
Right.
So response to intervention has been, I think, a powerful process for us here, in at least making sure that when we refer a child to child study team, we've done everything we can to try to intervene early and often and try to help that student get better. And so I think that's really been a positive thing. I know it's a challenge too, as well,
Sure.
because it puts the onus back on the regular ed teachers a lot,
Right.
in the sense that, okay, they're behind, but they're not learning disabled. They come back into your classroom, and now you have this wide range between your lowest learner and your highest learner.
Well, and that also provides some opportunity for differentiation, and I know Dr. Connell's team is really, that's one of the things we'll be working on here is, how do we use that during a tier one, intervention in the classroom, and how do we strengthen the differentiation that goes on. I think the other thing, that's been emphasized a lot has been our positive behavior support in schools, and really taking a look at the the office discipline referrals, and how have you seen that over the last few years?
Well, for me, I think the PBSIS initiative throughout the district, because we've done it at every school, it allows each school to build on positive expected behaviors. The thing I like about it is the students who are naturally going to do what's expected, they're recognized.
Right.
And I think in some of the other discipline systems that I've worked in, we spend a whole lot of time focused on the kids that are misbehaving, and not enough time recognizing those that are doing what they need to do, right? So I think this system sort of does it all. It gives reinforcement for those kids that day to day show up and do what's asked of them. It provides corrective responses and correction to the behavior for those kids that aren't. And it takes a positive angle on it, so that when a child misbehaves, we focus on learning. We teach them what the expected behavior is. We give them an opportunity to make the correction, and there's no it's a clean slate the next day, And I think that's what we need to do in it, and it's a progression, so that if a child is continuously misbehaving, then we go to another tier of intervention, and it progresses naturally. I think from a data point of view, you look across the district, office discipline referrals as one measure, just like a scale for weight, it's one indication of how the culture and behavior is at a school, and we've seen it drop at every school that's done this.
Wow.
And that's because efforts from principals, from the PVSIS aides, and to the classroom teachers really accepting and owning their school culture in a positive way.
So there's a couple of other initiatives that you have this year. I know that you've been very active in working with the community to improve the relationship between the community and the school district. And you've had 2 sessions now on community engagement. Could you talk to us a little bit about that and how you see that going this year?
That is one of those things that's going to continue to change and evolve as we move forward. Basically, the idea is trying to have other forums aside from, say, a formal board meeting where people who have the time and can come out and want to do something positive can come and get involved and engaged. And I think our first 2 meetings have been very successful in the sense that we've come together and it's starting to morph into 2 actions that we think we're going to take. The committee, when we had our meeting last, the committee was leaning towards doing a citywide cleanup, which will be a great thing. I don't know anybody that can say that that's not a positive thing, right?
Sure.
Cleaning up the city. In an organized way, if we do it through all 11 schools, we get all the students involved, the parents involved, we could really have a big impact on the city of Millville. So that's one thing that this committee is trying to work for. The other is to develop a mentoring, tutoring program where we take volunteers from the city that have, expertise and have some time that they can give back to us. We'll pair them up with a student in need across the district and let them come in for an hour maybe and help them with homework. Just be a positive influence on them. We're still trying to work out, the details of those 2 things, and the committee will take ownership for it. It's not a, Dave Gentile run thing. I believe very much in giving voice back to the committee and to the group that are showing up. And again, we're evolving it as we go to try to reach more people. We tried using Ustream, as you know, the other night, as just another way for people who couldn't maybe physically get there because of soccer practice or dinners or whatever was going on in the busy family that we know, being a working couple of dads and ourselves, we know what our parents are going through. It's hard. It's very difficult. But anyway, trying to do the Ustream in a way so that people could at least tune in afterwards. Our use of social media, Facebook, trying to get information out and meet parents, where they are. We all live on these devices nowadays, and so anyway, I think community engagement, community outreach is important. It's always important that your parents and your community feel that any issue that they have, is just a sort of a phone call away, an email away. They have to feel, and we have to be able to support them when they call and let them know that we're here to listen. And we'll take whatever it is and try to make it better. That's the bottom line with everything I do. Every day I wake up with the goal in mind of how can I add value to the school district and my life and everybody else's life. How do I make things better? I don't have a lot of patience or time for anyone who just wants to wake up every day and look for the negative in things. Because I'll tell you what, if you look for the bad in everything, you're going to find it, and it's easy. So for me, it's how do I make things better? How can I add value to those around me? And how can I make the lives of our students better? And so I think as a superintendent, you need to be approachable, meaning anybody can call me anytime, and many parents do. I give out my cell phone number quite often, and if anybody wants to contact me, I may not always agree with you at the end, which is okay because that's part of life, right? But as long as people know that they can have their voice heard, I think it's important. And sometimes I absolutely do agree. I get a parent to point something out, and you go, "Wow, never saw it that way. We need to fix that."
Right.
And I think having a customer focus is changing our organization for the better.
It almost seems like everything ties in, part of this, being the podcast, Millville United, like trying to have everyone tell their stories throughout the year of the great things that are going on, the community involvement, the systems approach to improving education, the focus on the whole child, all these things putting together. So where do you see the district with everything going the way it is? Where do you see the district in 5 to 10 years?
It's hard to predict that far out. I'll tell you that I'm committed to the journey of continuous improvement. And looking back now on the last 4 years, I'm very proud of some of the moves we've made and some of the things that we've done. And I think we have really made a difference in trying to make the district better. Not me per se, but our collective effort to make the organization better. We still have a long way to go and a lot to still work on. But again, that's continuous improvement. You slowly change things for the better as you go, and you build in processes and systems within the organization that make things better. And every opportunity you get to improve your processes is good. Where I'd like to see us in the short term, in the next year or two, is I want us, the district, to have filed our application for a Baldrige Award. We'd like to get a site visit from Baldrige, which, if you don't know what Baldrige is, it's a internationally recognized performance group, basically, that comes in and they evaluate the best organizations in the world. And school districts are now starting to take advantage of Baldrige, and there have been quite a few Baldrige School District Award winners. The thing I like about it is your state test scores are only one piece of your overall level of performance. And so they come in, and it's going to be a way for us to do a self-assessment and really look at how we operate as a district. So I'd like to see that coming. Personally, I'd like to stay in Millville and keep moving the district forward. That's about it.
That's great. So we'll be looking for, I'm sure, some more information on, on the Baldrige and the different events that are coming up. We're really excited about the things that are going on here at Millville. So you had mentioned before about, being able to be connected. So if somebody's listening or watching this podcast, what are some ways that they can connect with you?
Well, our district Facebook page, I'm monitoring that quite often, and if I don't necessarily see it, somebody else will. My email is david.gentile@millvillenj.gov. My office phone number is 327-7575. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. What is my Twitter? I'm drawing a blank. Here it goes. Dr. Gentile, right? _ MPS. Sorry about that. Millville Public Schools. Man. Anyway.
Okay.
Any way you need to have me contact you, I will do it. So if you leave me a message on a voicemail or an email, you'll get a response back from me.
That's great. Well, once again, I want to thank you for coming out to participate in episode 3 of the Millville United podcast, the podcast dedicated to featuring the great story of the Millville Public Schools. And just want to thank you again for coming out and all your support, in allowing us to do the things that we need to do for kids.
I appreciate it, and keep up the great work here at Bacon and all of our schools. To all of our students and staff members and parents, this is just a great community. I hope to see you soon, and look forward to catching up.
Great, thank you.
The Millville United podcast is a weekly podcast hosted by Dr. Spike Cook,
sharing stories, ideas, and information about the Millville Public School District in southern New Jersey.
For more information or to connect